transferred to Goma. Good morning, I'm Cholani Tulongwebe. Kenya's President William Ruto has warned against attempts to overthrow the government. Ruto's comments come as tensions remain high in the country amid anti-government protests. Kenya's Human Rights Commission says 31 people died and more than 100 were injured during Monday's clashes. Speaking during a visit to a construction site, Ruto said anyone taking part in looting and arson during anti-government protests in the country should be shot in the leg. Ruto said attacks on police would be considered a declaration of war on Kenya.
I saw them saying that they won't wait for the elections in 2027. They want to plan chaos, protests, burn people's property, cause death in Kenya so that they can overthrow the Kenyan government before 2027. I dare them to try.
US President Donald Trump is hosting leaders of 5 West African nations at the White House. This includes the presidents of Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mauritania, and Senegal. The meeting will focus on deepening economic partnerships, including private sector investment and possibly enhanced security cooperation. Sharon Bryce-Pease reports that the meeting is also seen as part of efforts to counter Chinese and Russian influence in the region.
According to the Washington-based think tank, the Brookings Institution, Trump is convening the mini-summit to link diplomacy with commercial partnerships in an effort to accelerate U.S. trade and investment and reassert a strategic presence in a region where U.S. influence had been eroding. A White House official is quoted as saying that Trump believed African countries offered incredible commercial opportunities which could benefit both the American people and their African partners. The meeting comes as the U.S. administration pivots away from foreign aid, including its shuttering of the USAID agency, which funded scores of development projects across Africa, to focus on trade and investment to drive mutual prosperity.
The Action SA party in South Africa will lead a protest outside the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Police Headquarters in Durban today to demand urgent action on the deepening crisis in the criminal justice system. This follows Provincial Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's allegations that senior police service officials, including Minister Senzo Mchunu, are corrupt and have ties with criminal syndicates and interfere in police operations. Party provincial leader Zwakele Mncwango has criticized Speaker of the National Assembly Thoko Didiza for assigning 3 political portfolio committees to investigate the matter. Mncwango is adamant that there is a strong case against Mchunu.
I think the Speaker is also doing what normally does by ANC leadership to shield each other, protect each other. Because at the end of the day, that process she is recommending is not going to bear any fruit, and I think the president must be brave enough. There is enough information presented to suspend or remove the minister. And more than that, the minister was live in a portfolio committee where he denied knowing some of these individuals. And yesterday, he now admitted that actually he knows this person.
The remains of a murdered Congolese customs worker beatified last month by the Vatican have been transferred to a cathedral in the city of Goma. Pope Leo has praised him as a martyr who preferred love for others over his own life. Tracy Boomgard reports.
Hundreds gathered at Goma's St. Joseph Cathedral to pay tribute to a man who became a symbol of hope to a country beset by corruption and shattered by war. Floribert Bwana Chwiben-Kositi was beatified by Pope Leo just last month, but it was back in 2007 when the customs officer took the decision that would cost him his life. Refusing to take a bribe to allow a shipment of dangerously spoiled food over the border, Mr. Kositi was kidnapped and murdered, transforming him into a martyr to moral integrity. He could now become Congo's first Catholic saint. For Channel Africa News, I'm Tracy Boomgard.
Greece has announced emergency measures to suspend the processing of asylum applications from North Africa after a rise in migrant numbers. Those arriving by boat will be arrested and detained. The Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis explained the decision.
You know the number of illegal migrants who have arrived in recent weeks. You understand that this emergency situation requires emergency response measures. Consequently, the Greek government has decided to inform the European Commission that with legislation that will be submitted to Parliament tomorrow, Greece will suspend the consideration of asylum applications, initially for 3 months, for those arriving from North Africa by sea.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo-Webe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome on the show today. You are with us right here on The Move. Thank you for joining us on DSTV Channel 802, OpenView 628, and remember on www.channelafrica.co.za and also the SABC Plus app. There's so many ways that you can find us here on Channel Africa. So wherever you're finding us, thank you for joining us on all those platforms. You know, there's people that you have to give them descriptions at times, and you have to actually give them a lot of credit for being who they are. And today I wasn't expecting anything. I was coming into the office just like, okay, it's just another day. So today's my birthday, but literally I want to give Palesa a big shout out, because I was like, nah, this is just another day. And I walked into the studio with banners and balloons and all sorts of things. And, you know, sometimes we kind of do life with people all the time, and you kind of have to remind yourself how kind and generous the world is when you have people such as Palesa in your life. So thank you so much, Palesa.
You
I
are
feel
welcome,
like I have to give you a shout out for all these colorful balloons and these banners. I don't know how you found a happy 40th birthday banner.
I will find anything if it has to do with a birthday. You know me. And I think it's quite a significant day. 40 is not the kind of birthday that you can just let pass by. So I did want you to feel special, especially if you were going to be working on your birthday.
Thank you so much, Bali.
You're
You
welcome.
are such a kind human being. Well, let's get into what's coming up on the show. And we've got so many cool conversations that are coming up today. And the first one is such a wonderful one, because it breaks our stereotypes that we always have to revisit and reinvestigate, because we all have stereotypes. We all think we see people in a neutral way, but we do have things that are vices within us that make people have a sense of, we think that we're better than them or they're better than us. And one of the vices we have is against people who have disabilities. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, navigating love and relationships for people with disabilities. We're going to be having a conversation with Moshatama Peter, a road accident survivor living with a disability. Moshatama is social media influencer and also a model. We're also going to be speaking to Professor John Gonley there, who's a lecturer at the Department of Population, Family and Reproductive Health at the University of Ghana around that particular conversation. So that's going to be a cool one. And then we have our Becoming feature, and we're going to be talking about choosing your battles wisely. I don't think you should choose any battle. I kind of like...
I don't want a battle.
So we're going to talk about choosing battles wisely. Sometimes you do have to kind of navigate navigate certain difficult conversations, but it's how you have those difficult conversations that actually is going to determine the way outside of that particular scenario. And then today, for our parenting and family corner, we're going to be speaking about interfaith marriages and relationships. That's going to be a cool one.
A really cool one, especially because there's so many dynamics that can affect relationships, particularly if they are interfaith. So that's going to be a great one to go through. So we're going to be having a little bit of fun today, and not only through the conversations, good conversations, informative conversations, but also celebrating someone very special.
Thank you,
the
buddy.
move,
You're making me
which
blush all
is
day
Benjamin.
today.
That's good. You should have red cheeks throughout the show until 12 p.m. Do join us at Channel Africa 1. We'd love to have you with us. And of course, you're the most important part of this team. So come through. It's time for On the Move.
The rhythm of Africa, the pulse of the continent. This is Channel Africa, the African perspective. Stella Longwe, Pamalonje.
Palitu soko mapano pamalonje. Kumvera nyimbo za mu Africa, kusangalala, kupeza moyo. Akuti kumva moyo kuti kuyenda bwino. Pano pamalonje. Ndiyetu apa tili ndikatswiri oyimba ameneyu ndikatswiri wa dziko la Malawi amene akukhala mdziko la South Africa, ndipo amayimba amene akuti ndi Big Nick Malawi. Yatusati kuti kodi moyo wanu woyimba ukuyenda bwanji mu Johannesburg?
Moyo woyimba ukuyenda bwinobwino kwambiri. Chiliyonse chikutheka ndithu bwinobwino.
Ayi aziwoneka chiliyonse chikutheka mofa magrasi anu apa mwaka. Akuti kumenya yonse aziwoneka zoti azikutheka ndithu mu Johannesburg.
Malonje, panthawi ya 6 koloko kufikira 7 koloko madzulo. Lowiruka ndi Stella Longwe.
Mzansi, this is more than just a game, it's a celebration of history. 30 years ago, the Springboks united our nation with that iconic Rugby World Cup victory, and now the mighty Boks are back. Don't miss South Africa versus Italy in the 30th anniversary commemoration match this Saturday, 12th July at 4 p.m. Watch it live on SABC2 or stream it anywhere on the SABC Plus app. Download the SABC Plus app today on iOS, Android or your smart TV. Switch to stream, no subscription. SABC Sport, for the love of the game.
Get set and be ready to go. On the Move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
Hey, it's time for us to get into our first conversation of the day today for On the Move. Navigating love and relationships is complex for all of us, and it seems like it's something that is, a big challenge for many of us. But for people living with a disability, the journey can come with additional layers of challenges and unique dynamics. And persons living with disabilities usually have to face social perceptions, also accessibility barriers, but also there are issues around self-worth, independence, and intimacy that are sometimes misunderstood. We open up an important conversation about love, connection, and partnership through the lens of disability. How do partners build understanding, equality, and empathy? How do we begin to challenge the stereotypes that still surround persons with the disabilities and their right to love fully and be loved in return? We're joined by Moshatama Peter, our friend here on the show. We've had her so many times on the show, so it's always cool having on the show to open up our minds when it comes to conversations around persons with disabilities. Moshatama is a road accident survivor living with a disability, a wonderful social media influencer, and also a model. We're also joined by Professor John Ganle, who is a lecturer in the Department of Population and Family and Reproductive Health at the University of Ghana. Thank you both for joining us there on the line. Moshatama, welcome back on the show.
Thank you. It's been a while.
Yeah, we missed you. We were like, we need to get Moshatama back on the show. Let's talk a little bit about this conversation today, because love belongs to everybody, but there are a lot of stereotypes and taboos that have to do with loving someone with a disability. And a lot of people think those things usually there are limitations around loving someone with a disability, but that's also a big stereotype that we have.
Totally, especially within the Black community, when you decide to have a relationship with someone who has a disability, it's almost like you settling for less, or you are choosing the worst option. So,
No, but Tembo, are you there?
yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Let's talk a little bit about the stereotypes that you see in communities. What are the things that stand out for you when it comes to you having a relationship with someone? What have you navigated around some of the big issues?
The first one is obviously questioning my worth. They'll be like, whoever decides to be in a relationship with me is settling for less, or they just choosing me because I'm the last option. There's nothing else better for them out there. And also the behavior towards people in relationships with disabled people. It's like you are doing them a favor. So a non-disabled person can't be in a relationship with a disabled person without questioning why are they with them in the relationship, or why do they choose them and not a non-disabled person. So it's a really complex, and it's in our faces because we see it in television when they have dating shows. Like, why are disabled people not included? Are we not desirable? Are we not attractive? Why are we not chosen, or why are we not an option? So it really goes back to what is out there, what are people exposed to, because people react to what they are exposed to. If they're not exposed to interabled relationships, then it does not make sense for them to naturally choose to be in a relationship with someone with a disability.
Yeah. And I'm sure some of the stereotypes around sex, right? Like, how am I going to have sex with someone with a disability? I know even when I ask you that question, someone like, how dare you ask her that? It has nothing to do with it. And that's the thing. People with disabilities are sometimes desexualized, as if you don't have the same sexual desires as abled persons.
Totally. And this is one of the questions that I get the most on social media. They would ask me, so as a person with a disability, can I even feel it? Can I even have sex? Like, how do I do it? And I'm like, what do you mean? I do it like every other human being. At the end of the day, I'm a woman just like any other woman. I have needs, I have desires. And I mean, I'm a sexual being at the end of the day. So it really shows that there's a lack of advocacy and there's a lack of awareness around this topic.
Let's bring in Professor John Ganle, who is a lecturer in the Department of Population, Family and Reproductive Health at the University of Ghana. Professor Ganle, thank you for also joining us. And it's an interesting take, this one, because there is a dehumanization that we do as abled people towards persons with disabilities, especially when it comes to romantic relationships.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And but of course, just to point out that the burdens are quite not the same for men and women, and I think she's already pointed out, especially for women, what it actually makes. So we've often kind of there's a whole relationship between love and beauty and all of that, and so for a woman with a disability, especially if it's a physical disability, of course, there's a question about, is this beautiful, right? And that's where you start to have a problem, because then it's like, well, if you can't find beauty in there, why do you bring the person up for a beauty show, for example? And then that's where you start to see the whole desexualization coming up, because then we have somehow joined, sexuality with physicality and all of that. And I think that's for women, that's like a double burden. Of course, it's not necessarily the same for men. At least in our research, men are a little bit more, and pardon if you like, to use the word loosely. But generally for women, that becomes a really big burden. And so when somebody then approaches, if a man approaches you, then it's like, well, you're trying to do a favor, or like she said, you become like the last option and not really something that has been genuinely sort of developed, in terms of love relationship. Yeah.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back to both of you. And we're speaking about navigating love and relationship as a person with disability. We're joined by Moshatama Peter, a road accident survivor living with a disability, social media influencer. In fact, she is one of the coolest influencers. Follow her on her Instagram. That is Royalty on Wheels. That's ROYALTI. That's how royalty is spelled there. Royalty on Wheels, and she's a fantastic influencer. We'll continue the conversation with both of our guests after this break.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et vos 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Palesa and Benjamin fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
It's 21 minutes past 9 Central Africa time. We're having a conversation about navigating love and relationship for persons living with disabilities. And in case you don't know, July is actually International Disability Pride Month, which is a great time to also raise awareness and have conversations about how persons with disabilities navigate normal everyday life as we all do. We still have on the line with us Moshatama Peter, road accident survivor living with a disability. She's also a social media influencer and a model. We also have with us Professor John Ganley, lecturer in the Department of Population, Family and Reproductive Health at the University of Ghana. It's good to hear different perspectives. Moshatama as a person living with a disability, explaining to us how she as a woman also navigates the space of love and relationships. Let's bring in a new voice into the conversation. We got a voice note from Richard Ndindwa, who's an SABC employee, a male living with a disability, and he has this to say on this conversation.
Good morning. On your topic that you're talking about of a person with a disability, how I navigate love relationships and experiences that I've seen, to me, it's almost like the same thing that everybody experiences. Yes, there are those who are curious, who wants to know certain things, like how do you do, your sexual intercourse and all those things. And sometimes it's much more easier if you try to explain to people, especially when they have good questions, because some it's difficult to differentiate between the different types of disabilities, and when they see you on a wheelchair, they would presume that maybe you cannot do anything. But sometimes it's easy for me because I just open up and just explain to them, yes, I've been through some relationships. Some were good, some were bad. Some were, people were lacking the knowledge of doing certain things. But you always compromise and try and give a person a lesson, and you being open and talking about it, it becomes much more easier, and expressing how you would like things to be done and which things you cannot perform, or in what ways you cannot perform certain things because of your disability. So yeah, it's been one of those things, but it's an up and down thing that happens. And even now, even at this age, you still get people asking you questions, and even from, as a man, even other men would even ask you, like something like that, as to how do you get kids and all those things. It's like it's a normal thing somewhere, somehow, but It's just a matter of trying to educate and giving them the opportunity to understand, and you show them some other perspective of your side. And you get women who wants to experience, just have fun with you, and you get those challenges, because they are, I'd say they are inquisitive to know and maybe have the experience, and maybe they tell their friends, who knows?
Yeah, thank you so much, Richmond Ndindwa, for that particular voice note. And I think it's a great perspective to bring in the conversation as a man who's also navigating relationships and love, living with a disability. Nobathembu, he mentioned something that's quite, interesting there about people who see a relationship or love or a sexual relationship with someone living with a disability almost like it's an experiment. I just want to experience what it's like. Sure. Is that something that you would say is a regular experience of yours?
Yes, it's quite common, but I believe that men who have approached me, they haven't openly said that they are exploring, but you get to see in their attitude or in their behavior, this person is not being genuine. They're just trying out, because I've heard some rumors or things where people say that having sex with a disabled woman is quite, mind blowing because apparently we are flexible. I don't know. That's what they say. But yeah, like people have all these myths and theories about having sex with a disabled person, that it's different than non-disabled people, and it's crazy. It's crazy, the things that I've heard. And sometimes I can just laugh about it because, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. Dr. Ganle, there are two types of relationships that we can look into. Those with two persons with disabilities getting into a relationship with one another, and those where, an able-bodied person gets in a relationship with, someone with a physical disability. But we usually leave out those people with maybe mental disabilities and other forms of disabilities in a conversation like this. Are you there, Dr. Ganle? Okay, it seems like we've lost Dr. Ganle. Okay, are you there?
Sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. I was sorry. So that's a really important point, especially within the African continent. I think, yes, there are different grades of disabilities, and I think mental disability is really one of the areas that when it comes to relationships, sexual relationships, it becomes extremely difficult to kind of like engage. There's a whole lot of shaming in that space, and so your partner has a mental health issue and is like, no, I don't want to get closer. So that becomes the starting point. There's a whole lot of that shaming that you really don't want to be like there. And that comes from a misguided fear that, well, maybe if I get into that kind of relationship, I might end up with kids that have mental health issues. And so I really want to stay back. And so that becomes a real barrier for people who are experiencing some form of mental health disabilities when it comes to engaging in meaningful sexual relationships. Of course, there are also times that they're not too sure what their partner would probably reactions would be in a certain sort of environment. For example, in the public, they are not entirely sure whether, for example, you can actually go out and hang out, or things would just go the other way, and then everybody's like, oh, this is how this couple is. So there's a whole lot of fear, some of it not necessarily well informed, and so that kind of like brings in some barriers to sort of building relationship with people who are having mental health challenges in their communities.
All right. Unfortunately, I mean, this is such an intriguing and interesting conversation to have, and a very informative one as well, to really understand and navigate that with everybody, we all need love, we all experience love, and we all have desires of love, sexual desires, and interests in one another. And it should be no different for persons living with disabilities. I would like to thank and appreciate both of you for joining us in this conversation. Nobathembu Peter, road accident survivor, social media influencer. She is at Royalty on Wheels on Instagram and her other social media platforms. Do follow her, very informative. She raises a lot of awareness and she's quite fun. She's got a beautiful big smile there as well. And Professor John Ganle, lecturer in the Department of Population, Family and Reproductive Health at the University of Ghana. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
It's 9:30 Central Africa time. You can tell us your views on this conversation, of course, on our social media platforms at Channel Africa 1. Let's get our latest sports news.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good morning, guys. A top European court will decide today whether double Olympic champion Caster Semenya can be required to lower her testosterone levels to compete as a woman, in a key decision on contested gender testing. The European Court of Human Rights, the ECHR decision, comes after a row engulfed the 2024 Paris Olympics over the gender of an Algerian boxing champion, Imani Khalif. South African runner Semenya was the Olympic 800-meter champion in 2012 and 2016 and world gold medalist in 2009, 2011 and 2017. She is classed as having differences in sexual development, but has always been legally identified as female. Semenya has said she hopes the ECHR will protect athletes' human rights and inspire all young women to be accept themselves in all their diversity. South Africa's national multi-coded sporting body, SASCOC President Barry Hendricks, has urged the newly elected Athletics South Africa's board to take a measured and a careful approach in appointing a new CEO. Terence Magogodela has served as acting CEO for the past 4 years, and following last month's elections, the Federation is now seeking to make a permanent appointment. Hendricks cautioned against rushing the process, noting that it took SASCOC 6 months to appoint Nozipho Jafta as CEO in January 2012 following the passing of Tabi Reddy.
They've got to go back now because they were just elected last month. They've got to sit down and do a strategic workshop to determine what are the new strategies over the next 4 years and give themselves time frames to achieve that. Of course, with a permanent CEO, there's a process of writing up the job description as well as then going out onto the market to find a competent person, doing the interviews. In SASCOC, that took up to 6 months if you really want to do a proper job and find the most competent person.
Hendricks says there must be positive steps taken to rectify the wrongs of the past.
And you must remember, I've been through many sports where we've chosen CEOs, but they failed. If one looks at basketball, if one looks at a host of other federations where the CEOs came and went. Cricket South Africa is an example. And I'm not using this to berate those federations. I'm simply using it as an example that sometimes we do make mistakes. Sometimes it's up to the individual. But we've got to take a step back and try and correct it. Even SASCOC, for example, where we had to fire the previous CEO. But if we don't take positive and constructive steps to correct something, then I have a problem with that.
Football news now. Zambia's women's national football team captain Barbara Banda has credited the team's first win at the CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations WAFCON to great teamwork. In the fixture at the Stade El Bashir in Mohammedia, the Copper Queens responded to their frustrating 2-2 draw against host Morocco in their group opener to beat Senegal 3-2 and demonstrate their quest to fight for the title. Banda led the way for Zambia after she cancelled out an early goal for Senegal courtesy of Ngwena Ndiaye and make it 1-1. 6 minutes into the second half, Zambia retook their lead after Kundananji turned the scorer this time, showing poise in the box to convert. Banda, who had terrorized the Senegalese defense all game, extended Zambia's lead in the 73rd minute with her second of the night, reacting fastest to a corner and firing home from close range. Despite Senegal pulling a goal back through Ndaye, who converted from the penalty spot, Zambia held on to secure the vital win. Now on to rugby news. The junior Springboks continued their perfect start and sealed top spot in the group in the World Rugby Under-20 Championship after thrashing Scotland 73-14 on Wednesday in Calvisano in Italy. The South Africans also beat Australia 73-17 and England 32-22 to book their spot in the semi-finals, and they probably did enough to secure the top seed position for the playoffs, which are scheduled to take place next Monday. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lengwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Mix Vibration sur Channel Africa.
C'est notre invitée du jour, la belle Aïna Mwenze. Elle est là. Certaines l'appellent Boss Lady.
Bonjour Monsieur Jolino.
Parlez-nous un tout petit peu de vous.
Je m'appelle Boss Lady Aïna. Je mets l'accent sur le nom de Boss Lady parce que je mérite cela après le travail fait. Et c'est une rémunération en titre de la personne que je suis devenue aujourd'hui. Épouse et une mère de 4 garçons. Et voilà ce que je peux dire pour l'instant.
Et vous vous êtes lancé dans le business. Comment c'est venu?
En tant que mère et se retrouvant dans les pays étrangers, particulièrement en Afrique du Sud, je me disais que laisser les enfants sur la charge des travailleurs ou d'une bonne, ça serait pas très intéressant. Je me suis dit, bon, je dois essayer de m'organiser et trouver un emploi que je peux faire.
Mix Vibration, tous les dimanches de 18h à 19h, temps universel.
This Mandela Month, we honor his belief that education is the most powerful weapon to change the world.
Education is one of the most important weapons in a country.
Catch us on DSTV Bouquet 802. Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
Hey, let's move things on to our business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Benjamin, and good morning. Brazil's President Lula da Silva has hit back at US President Donald Trump's announcement of a 50% tariff on Brazilian exports to the United States, warning that it would be addressed in terms of Brazil's reciprocity law. President Lula, who just presided over a BRICS leaders summit in Rio de Janeiro, has responded on social media to a letter in which President Trump announced a 50% tariff from the 1st of August. Trump also railed against the trial of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, who faces coup charges for allegedly seeking to remain in power after losing the 2022 presidential election to Lula. Sherwin Bryce-Peace reports from New York.
Trump's letter posted to Truth Social said the treatment of Bolsonaro was an international disgrace, calling his trial a witch hunt that should not be taking place, echoing his judicial woes before winning last November's election, which squashed his own legal peril. Trump indicated that the 50% tariff was linked to what he called Brazil's insidious attacks on free elections and censorship orders against American social media companies. President Lula responded that Brazil was a sovereign nation with independent institutions and would not accept any form of tutelage, arguing that all companies operating in-country had to comply with Brazilian law. Sherwin Bryce-Peace, SABC News, New York.
Meanwhile, the US President Donald Trump maintains that the BRICS group of rapidly growing economies were hell-bent on destroying the US dollar's global dominance. This comes after the US intensified its opposition to the BRICS groups Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, cautioning that their efforts to challenge the dollar pose a risk to America's economic leadership.
I thought BRICS was, I said this about a year ago, and it largely broke up. But, there are a couple that hang around, but I thought it largely broke up. BRICS is not, in my opinion, not a serious threat. But what they're trying to do is destroy the dollar so that another country can take over and be the standard. And we're not going to lose the standard at any time. If you have a smart president, you will never lose the standard. If you have a stupid president like the last one, you would lose the standard.
The South African Cane Growers Association has expressed concern about the 30% tariff on South African sugar exports to the US. The tariffs are set to take effect on the 1st of August. As they say, the move could render the country's sugar uncompetitive in the US and emphasized the need to protect the local industry from the ongoing threat of unfairly priced imports. The association represents over 20,000 small-scale farmers and 1,200 large-scale growers. Chief Executive Officer of SA Cane Growers, Dr. Thomas Fanke.
The increase in the tariff to the US will have an impact on the South African sugar industry. We send 24,000 tons of sugar to the US every year. And in the past, this was done at a zero import duty due to the quota. The 30% tariff on the sugar will make us uncompetitive in that market, and that will mean we will have to drop our price in order to compete with other countries.
Lesotho has declared a national state of disaster due to an economic crisis fueled by mass unemployment. Government ministries have been ordered to allocate 2% of their budgets to job creation programs. The Prime Minister, Sam Matekane, says youth unemployment has been made worse by cuts to foreign aid and US tariffs. Oil prices have dropped as the latest tariff announcements by US President Donald Trump were perceived by market participants to threaten global economic growth and demand for the resource. Brent crude futures were down 22 US cents or 0.31% at $69.97 a barrel. US West Texas Intermediate crude lost 27 cents or 0.39% at $68.11 a barrel. The dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 530, Botswana 13 pula 21, Kenya 128 shilling 594, and Zambia 24 kwacha 30. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar there will cost you 5 real 47. Russia 23 rubles 78, India 85 rupees 72, China 7 yuan 17, and in South Africa the dollar will cost you 17 rand 79 cents. 73 pence British pound and 85 to the euro. Gold is trading at $3,332 and platinum $1,344 per ounce. Brent crude oil $70.14 a barrel. For any business news or stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459 for Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg. I'm Tabisolo Hoku.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
SABC Sport brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting on the 13th of July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2, tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache, and the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus anytime, anywhere, no subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa. Nelson Mandela taught us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it.
We should all bear in mind that the greatest glory of living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time you fall.
This Mandela Month, Channel Africa salutes everyday heroes. On Channel Africa, the African perspective. Catch us on Satellite Channel PAS10. Step into the heart of the day on the move with Palesa and Benjamin. Emotion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tebogo Lepoleni and Matseko Musito. Tamengo Bene talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique, with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some Lucifer knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tebogo Lepoleni and Matseko Musito. Tamengo Bene talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some Lucifer knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This
is birthday today.
Happy birthday.
I feel like it's Palesa's birthday. You must see Palesa on anyone's birthday. It's like it's her birthday.
Birthdays are so nice. They're so fun, guys. And they make you happy inside. Or they make me happy inside.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, guys, it's just a birthday.
It's not
like,
just a
Palesa's
birthday.
like dancing around in studio. Yeah, you should see her when she's on birthday mode.
I love it. Well, this is something Soweto. This one is titled Happy Birthday. Of course, it is Benjamin's 40th birthday today.
40th birthday. It's a big milestone.
How does it feel?
It just feels
like yesterday?
Yeah.
No?
No, not really. But there's like a lot of like reflection that's happening during the day. Like, just like making reflections on the 40 years of being alive.
Okay, we'll find out a little bit more about those reflections.
Yeah.
I think I'm very interested to find out about them.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the conversation we were having on, finding love, navigating love and relationships for persons living with disabilities. It was great to hear like real life experiences from both, gender perspectives, from a male and a female, to find out how exactly, are they navigating that space, but also the public's reaction to them and what they think, their deservedness of love or relationship looks like. Yeah,
it's interesting because I think, to be honest, we all are struggling when it comes to relationships.
Yes.
Relationships are not an easy thing
No.
to navigate. They are a challenge. And I don't want to say for abled or disabled. I don't want to make that comparison. It's just like in general, it's just complicated when you are in a relationship.
True.
So if you compound the expectations and all of that stuff that are associated with relationships with a disability, then it compounds the complexity of it.
That is so true. In fact, I saw a video where a video where you know where I always see my videos.
Oh,
I saw
TikTok.
a video on TikTok because I'm always on TikTok of two autistic, so adult autistic, a male and a female, who are in a relationship. They're both non-verbal, and their parents, they went out with their parents to go have lunch, and they were taking videos of their interaction, which was really incredible because they both do not speak, but they were communicating. They looked at each other lovingly in the eyes, had their faces close to one another. And you could see, the complexities of what a relationship looks like, even though there was not a word said, but you could feel the love between them. And I think that was a great way to raise awareness, to show people that, hey, love doesn't have to look a particular way, but you can see it, you can feel it, it's there.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your take on that one? It's an important conversation to actually keep having constantly. Relationships, when they have to navigate the complexity of living with a disability. And we always correct ourselves on this one. It's not disabled people. We always say it's people first with disabilities. So it's the person who is the center, and their disability is just a condition. It does not necessarily define them. What's your take on this conversation? +2763 406 9126. Have you seen some stereotypes around relationships with people with disabilities? Let us know on our WhatsApp line. +2763 406 9126.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
Vue d'Afrique avec Joël Mouteba.
Cette peur d'un point de non-retour nucléaire suffit-elle selon vous à légitimer une telle offensive, Monsieur Talazi?
Absolument pas du tout. Cela fait plus de 30 ans que l'Israël crie haut et fort sur les toits, où il veut se faire entendre que l'Iran serait à 1 an pour obtenir l'arme nucléaire. Parfois, l'Iran serait à 6 mois. Parfois, l'Iran serait à 2 semaines pour obtenir son arme nucléaire. Et curieusement, jusqu'à ce jour, il n'y a toujours aucune preuve que l'Iran a obtenu cette arme nucléaire, en dépit des déclarations d'Israël et de certaines puissances parfois.
Vue d'Afrique, du lundi au vendredi, de 15h à 16h, temps universel.
9 to 12 midday, Central African Time. On the move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tebogo Lekwaleni and Matseko Musito. Tamengo Bene talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Mouteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tebogo Lekwaleni and Matseko Musito. Tamengo Bene talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color.
Laba Laba by Crayon, taking us to 54 minutes past 9 o'clock Central African time. You're listening to On the Move on the 40th birthday edition of the show. Well, it's not the show's birthday. It's actually my birthday. We haven't lived that long, but definitely it's been a lovely thing. Thank you again, Bali, for that particular surprise. And we're looking forward to the many conversations that we are going to have here on the show. And we've been talking about disabilities and, people with disabilities in terms of where they stand with romantic relationships. And I think, one of the voice notes that we had where a gentleman with a disability was saying, I think we navigate the same challenges. It's just how you communicate an issue and how you're able to learn from your partner. You'll never find that you are on par with a partner with everything. So you always have to educate yourself with a partner in terms of the differences between the two of you. Anyway.
And that's the thing. I think a lot of able-bodied people otherize persons living with disabilities, and they think their experiences must be really different. And I think that comes from a sense of us thinking that, maybe they don't deserve love, or they might not receive or give love in the same way we do. But hey, it's tough for everyone out there, and it really is a learning curve and a learning experience for all of us.
Yeah, and the lady we were speaking to was saying, when I think you asked that question around the fetishization of disabled person, like it's an experiment of sort.
Right.
And I like the fact that she laughed through that response, because it seems like we as abled people don't even think we can negotiate with disabled persons if we have an interest. Maybe it's a one-night stand negotiation.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a long-term relationship. But we feel like you can't negotiate a sexual relationship with them.
And those negotiations happen here as well. I mean, there's so many different kinds of fetishizations that we also go through as when you're able-bodied or, you don't live with disabilities. And those are the same conversations we can, have with persons living with disabilities. There are differences in navigating, of course, these conversations if the person living with disability might have a mental disability, which, it's important to understand not to take advantage of certain situations.
Is still important.
Consent is still 100% important. But outside of the consent conversation, and once consent is there, then you have to navigate that conversation the same way you do in able-bodied relationships.
I wonder, like with the autistic example you were making there, how that particular relationship would work. Would it have to be okayed by caregivers? Would it have to be okayed by those who are maybe supervising the disabled persons? How do you think that gets moderated? Is it
100%.
Outside parties, or do you think the two persons have more of a voice in it, especially because you said they couldn't speak?
Yes, I think that, in this video that I give you as an example, both the parents of the autistic individuals were present in the date, right?
Okay.
Because they are there to sort of overlook. They gave them space, so they're sitting a little bit far away from them, giving them space to navigate their own space together. But because they have a certain extent of consensual abilities, they're there to sort of oversee and overlook, with also giving them the space and the distance to be natural around each other and to enjoy that love relationship together.
Yeah, very, very, very powerful to see those kind of relationships unfolding, but also to see the open-mindedness as well of caregivers or guardians, because at times we say, no, you can't do this because you have a disability, and you cut someone out of that life experience. So very, very interesting one there. We want to get your thoughts on this conversation. Remember, our WhatsApp number is +2763 406 9126. Relationships, love relationships specifically with persons with disabilities. Maybe you are an abled person and you were like, okay, I would actually love to have a relationship with this person with a disability. Maybe you've had that experience and maybe you were shunned down upon. How was that experience? Give us your thoughts as well, how you see this topic. +2763 406 9126. We're moving into the second hour of the show. Let's get the latest news.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin. Top story is Asawa. Kenyans expressed shock at President Ruto's comments, and the UN program on HIV and AIDS set to release a new report on global infections. Good morning. I'm Cholani Tulongwebe. Kenyans have expressed shock after the comments made by President William Ruto. Ruto has called on the police to shoot at protesters. He angrily denounced anti-government protesters, vowing to use whatever means necessary to ensure peace and stability. Kenya's Human Rights Commission says 31 people died and more than 100 were injured during Monday's clashes with the police. Channel Africa's correspondent in Kenya, Alex Kayari, says citizens are reeling from Ruto's words.
He says that under the Kenyan law, anybody who attacks a police station is guilty of a terrorist attack or crimes of terrorism. And this in itself actually negates the constitution of Kenya in terms of police brutality and how the police are supposed to handle members of the public. And the fact that this comes a few days after the Interior CS, who's in charge of security, also called on the police to kill protesters who try to come to the police station, or just anybody who's seen coming close to a police station. Actually, it's raising a lot of fears and justifying that order by the CS was actually given to him by the president himself.
The Action SA party is due to lead a protest outside the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Police Headquarters in Durban, in South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal province today, to demand urgent action on the deepening crisis in the criminal justice system. This follows a Provincial Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's allegations that senior police service officials, including Minister Senzo Mchunu, are corrupt and have ties with criminal syndicates and interfere in police operations. Party Provincial Leader Zwakele Mngwango has criticised Speaker of the National Assembly, Togo Didiza, for assigning 3 portfolio committees to investigate the matter. Mngwango is adamant that there's a strong case against Mkhunu.
I think the Speaker is also doing what normally does by ANC leadership to shield each other, protect each other. Because at the end of the day, that process she is recommending is not going to bear any fruit. And I think the president must be brave enough. There is enough information presented to suspend or remove the minister. And more than that, the minister was live in a portfolio committee where he denied knowing some of these individuals. And yesterday, he now admitted that actually he knows this person.
The United Nations Programme on HIV and AIDS is set to release a new report on global infections today. This after warning that the US cuts to humanitarian funding and other donors could result in millions of new cases and AIDS-related deaths. The UN says previous American funding had helped to cut HIV infections by 60% since 2000. The Executive Director of UN AIDS Programme, Winnie Byanyima, says funding is the responsibility of the community.
Funding crisis is not the result of just one country cutting. We need to renew the global solidarity. Global challenges like a pandemic, like HIV, can't be solved by individual countries. It's a global effort that can help us end a global challenge.
The remains of a murdered Congolese customs worker beatified last month by the Vatican have been transferred to a cathedral in the city of Goma. Pope Leo has praised him as a martyr who preferred love and for others over his own life. Tracy Boomgard has the story.
Hundreds gathered at Goma's St. Joseph Cathedral to pay tribute to a man who became a symbol of hope to a country beset by corruption and shattered by war. Floribert Bwana Chwiben Kositi was beatified by Pope Leo just last month. But it was back in 2007 when the customs officer took the decision that would cost him his life. Refusing to take a bribe to allow a shipment of dangerously spoiled food over the border, Mr. Kositi was kidnapped and murdered, transforming him into a martyr to moral integrity. He could now become Congo's first Catholic saint. For Channel Africa News, I'm Tracy Bumgard.
And this week on Channel Africa Conversations podcast, host Peter Ndoro is in conversation with Malawi's Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Jessie Kabwila, who says she has prioritized affording students loans so they can be in universities and contribute to the Malawi government.
During my tenure, we have seen the government of Malawi tripling loans that are given to students. Now, most of our population is very poor. They can't afford to go to university. So it's a big thing, the fact that this government, through my ministry, has been able to not only give loans to record students than was done before, but even extend these loans to private universities.
For the full interview, be sure to catch the latest episode of Channel Africa Conversations podcast on our YouTube channel. And recapping the top story this hour, Kenyans have expressed shock after the comments made by President William Ruto. Ruto has called on the police to shoot at protesters. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Mwebe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
All right, it's the second hour of On the Move, Benjamin's 40th birthday edition.
It's in the second hour. That was the first hour.
No, it's going to be a birthday the entire day. It's the whole 3 hours. I cannot get enough of it. So go and join our live stream. It's actually nice because you'll be able to see Ben with his balloon and his banner saying happy 40th birthday.
Yeah. Wonderful surprise. I didn't expect this. Yeah.
All right, we're moving into our Becoming feature in this hour of the show. This is where we take a look at the human experience, how we become who we are, some of the things that we need to navigate as humans, and of course as Africans living in this continent. Have you ever heard the term choose your battles wisely? Sometimes it happens in parts where you know that you need to stand up for yourself, and then someone else says, maybe not this one, rather choose your battles wisely. Why do people say that, especially in moments when you need to actually say something, or you might feel the need to stand up and say something, whether you're standing up for yourself or standing up for others, or you just need to have a particular conversation? Choosing your battle wisely might mean a lot of things, but do we need to? Do we really need to choose our battles wisely? What does it mean, and in what instances is it good to actually use it and really choose your battles wisely? And what other instances should you actually shun it aside and say, no, this is not the time to say choose your battles wisely. This is the time to go into battle and deal with something head on. We'll be chatting to life coach Grace Edibo in this hour of the show to really unpack that term, choose your battles wisely.
Hey, thank you for joining us. Remember, you can still interact with us via our social media platforms. If you're not part of the Channel Africa family on our social media, come on, let's make the circle bigger there at Channel Africa 1 on X and on our different social media platforms. We're also on Instagram. We are on TikTok. We are on Thread. We are on all platforms. So use that handle at Channel Africa 1 so you can stay in touch with us.
Palesa and Benjamin, fuel your day. with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
África. Conhece o Ntivani?
Claro que sou eu.
Ntivani é o amante da música de corpo e alma.
Eu amo música africana.
Ele aprecia todos os tipos de melodias e passa os seus dias a ouvir a Channel Africa. Okay. Adivinha só, a Channel Africa quer ajudar o Ntivani e os amantes da música em todo o lado a descobrir ainda mais música incrível. Por isso, a Channel Africa está a convocar artistas africanos a submeterem as suas músicas. Músicos, lembrem-se de nos dar todas as informações relevantes no music@channelafrica.co.za. As submissões são a vossa oportunidade de ser ouvidos, mas não garantem inclusão na lista. Todas as submissões serão cuidadosamente analisadas para verificar se cumprem os requisitos da nossa estação. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Mzansi, this is more than just a game. It's a celebration of history. 30 years ago, the Springboks united our nation with that iconic Rugby World Cup victory, and now the mighty Boks are back. Don't miss South Africa versus Italy in the 30th anniversary commemoration match this Saturday on the 12th of July at 1600 hours Central African Time. Watch it live on SABC2 or stream it anywhere on SABC Plus app. Download the SABC Plus app today on iOS, Android, or your smart TV. Switch to stream, no subscription. SABC Sport, for the love of the game.
Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go.
Have you ever heard the term choose your battles wisely? And does it usually come to you at a point where you feel like you need to stand up for yourself, stand up for someone else, or maybe even in the middle of an argument? In life, not every argument needs a response and not every hill is worth dying on. So the phrases keep going. So whether it's at home, at work, or in relationships, learning to choose your battle wisely is one of the most underrated life skills and yet one of the most powerful as well. However, when do you use this term, choose your battles wisely? Because sometimes some battles are actually worth fighting. We'll be unpacking the emotional, cultural, and psychological power of discernment, knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, but also when to walk away altogether. Let's talk about this morning with a life coach who's joining us on the line, Grace Edibo, to chat about choosing your battles wisely. Grace, thank you so much for your time. Good morning to you. You know, I hate hearing the term choose your battles wisely. I actually used to hate it when I was a lot younger. These days, I keep quiet a lot more often. But usually when we are younger, we are so quick to stand up, so quick to battle, so quick to respond, and so quick to argue. Grace, are you there?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, let's chat about that.
Okay. You said, sorry.
So I'm saying that sometimes when we are younger, or just some people in general, are so quick to respond, so quick to answer, so quick to argue in moments when we perhaps shouldn't. So let's talk about that.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. And that would be because, growing up, they would advise you, to be very, very careful. So we struggle when we are faced with challenges, or you're faced with a battle. You're in your head, you're hearing, don't do this, don't do that. And because of that, which is your makeup, you would struggle internally whether to fight or to go back. And growing up, sometimes you're told that you should, put up for yourself and fight for yourself. So in all of this, when you're talking about battle, is a major crisis, a major problem for anyone to know when to fight or to go back. But as an adult, you would now understand that some battles are better to either run or choose wisely. And it is going to be what the battle is about. So the content of the battle is going to determine if you're going to stay and fight or run.
or do whatever it is that you feel or deem fit to do at the time.
Let's unpack this term, choose your battles wisely, because, we know that there are two responses to times of maybe argument, times of big, intense moments, and that's fight or flight. And usually people might choose to fight because it might be a trauma response. A lot of people don't even want to feel like, the world is against them. And usually when you do feel like the world is against you, your first response is to fight, right? So let's chat about that fight or flight that we all have. Most of the time, a lot of people might choose to fight in moments that maybe flight might be better, to walk away, to remain silent.
Well, thank you so much. And this question is largely dependent on several factors. As a human being, you have your beliefs, you have your values, and you have, the things that drive you. And then you have chemicals, hormones that would push you at some point in time. So when it comes to choosing battles and knowing when to fight, flight or fight is determined by the conditions attached to you per time. So for instance, let me give you a very simple example. You know how someone is in a very terrible state of mind, and, emotions will kick in, the mental state will kick in. At that point in time, fighting would be the last thing that would come to your mind when you're faced with a particular battle, because you're barely, dealing with yourself. Yeah. So in such a case, you want to conserve your energy, so you would fly. So that's you just leave that particular battle. And again, sometimes the same hormones can be the determining factor, or the environment can be the determining factor where you want to fight. It might also be your values. It might also be your beliefs that, okay, are you just going to watch someone talk to you anyhow? You want to stand up for yourself, and then you want to fight. So when we talk about these things, you don't want to, you can speak from the angle of what is that particular condition per time. Yes, it's either fight, sometimes freeze, or flight.
Yeah.
So it depends on the environmental factor, the physiological factor, the biological factor, whatever it is, and the one that is dominant per time is going to determine what you're going to pick when you have to deal with a particular situation.
Yeah. But Grace, it requires a certain level of discernment to really know which battles to fight and which battles to let go. Because sometimes if you're someone that you often chooses your battles wisely, meaning you choose silence or you choose to walk away, that can cause some people to see you as weak and then, walk all over you or do things that may be against your primary principles. So how do we distinguish when to be silent and when to speak?
Absolutely beautiful question. And I particularly like this one because before now, I was someone that would, when faced with a particular thing, I want to deal with it and there.
Yeah.
So that I don't want to pack it in my head. I don't want it to live rent free in my head. So I deal with it. Yeah. So as we journey along and we grow, discernment is like a muscle that you continue to improve. So when you notice that every time you fight, instead of it helping the situation, it compounds it. It affects you mentally, emotionally, all through. You start to try different things. You try being silent when you're faced with a challenge. You look at it and see how it pans out. Did it save you from more stress? You put that down. You fight. Sometimes you want to, stand up for yourself so that people don't walk over you. You put that down. after a while, like I said, it's like an exercise you're doing. Internally, you would know the one that works for you. That's where wisdom comes to play.
Yeah.
You know when you have to stand for yourself, where you have to know that voice that is giving you the impression that this won't work very well if you fight. But if you stay silent and just observe and look at it, you can deal with it when you're in a better position. So when you talk about discernment, it's about, trying. You try, you check, you see what works, and then after a period of time, your body and all the organs in your system would be able to let you know when to choose a particular battle or when to forget about it or when to even stay silent. Because sometimes some people think being silent is a form of weakness. For me, that's the most difficult thing you can do because we're very reactive as human beings.
Yeah.
We want to react to things. But when you stay silent, it's just like a powerful tool that can be used. But the most important thing is to know when to use it and how to use it powerfully. That's what I'll say.
Well, there's so many instances that require us to choose those battles, either go into battle or walk away. But it might be particularly hard, especially in African family setups where there are so many different dynamics like age, respect your elders. You can't speak back to them when there are moments where you actually need to speak up for yourself, or maybe your siblings or other dynamics over there. And at its core, the conversation about choosing your battles wisely is a conversation about emotional regulation and discernment. So we're going to take a break, Grace. Stay with us, and we're going to come back and speak about that. Learning the right tools to understand how to choose your battles wisely, how to regulate your emotions, and how to discern, especially in various scenarios, family, friends, and even at work, because it might have dire consequences if you don't choose your battles wisely. It's 21 minutes past 10 Central Africa time. We'll continue this conversation with life coach Grace Idibo after this.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week. Got something to say? Are you passionate about issues that matter? Do you have a voice that deserves to be heard? Well, we've got the perfect platform for you. Call in or drop us a WhatsApp on +27 63 406 9126, and we will call you back so you could have your say and be part of the conversation.
30 years of age. I just turned 30 on the 15th of November. So that's who I am,
It's not just talk. It's your chance to air your views, share your opinion, engage with a community that values your perspective. Follow us on our social media. Visit our website at www.channelafrica.co.za and get ready to share your views on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Step into the heart of the day on the move with Palesa and Benjamin.
Hey, it is time for us to continue this wonderful conversation we're having in our Becoming feature, which is choosing your battles wisely. And we're speaking to Grace Idibo, life coach, who's joining us from Nigeria. Grace, the tools are very important on how to actually navigate making that selection, because at times there is something that you need to address. There are things that you can't just be quiet about. There are moments where you have to actually say, you know what, this makes me feel uncomfortable, or this is a situation that I don't want to be part of. So you need to confront the matter. So what tools would you say we need to actually engage in a healthy way when we are choosing those battles?
Thank you so much. Top on the list would be emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is that tool. It's something that everyone should be very, very particular about. When you understand people in terms of, first things first, you understand yourself, you know what triggers you, you know what can put you off, then you would understand how to position yourself when you're dealing with people.
Okay. And
are you there?
Yeah,
Yes.
I hear you. And then how do you approach that person? Let's say you actually want to deal with it and confront the person in a way that is not going to be disruptive. What would you advise our listeners to do?
All right. So effective communication is the key. Effective communication can really deal with situations. I mean, when you before anything, when we talk about battles and when we struggle with things, we're dealing with communication. And once you're emotionally intelligent and you're aware of the other person's personality, you know how to talk to that person. Now, some people are very edgy. When you talk to them, when they're not in a very good mood, they will. So you want to pause. You want to take your time to pause and know the right time to bring up the conversation. And knowing the right things to say can also help. I mean, there are some people, no matter how agitated they are, when you're able to effectively communicate that thing that you want them to know about and how it has hurt you and put you in a situation that you do not like, that person will rethink and see that, okay, maybe I was wrong, and I can now sit down and listen to you, help me unpack it. So the tool I would say is, first, you have to understand the key principles of emotional intelligence, and then effective communication, knowing when to say what is on your mind, how to say it, so it doesn't compound the issue when you're dealing with the person, is the major tool that I would say can work. And I mean, it's something one has to learn. There are several ways that you can learn how to effectively communicate. So that's what I would say can help in unpacking and dealing with situations.
That's very, very helpful. And, the battle itself at times is something for some personality types that they love engaging in. Some people even create the battles themselves because that's how they navigate life. Conflict is something that kind of stimulates them. And most battles are created by ourselves as human beings. And at times we need to learn that we don't only survive in this life by walking through one battle after another battle after another battle. And there's some people who think that's a way of living. Battles don't always have to be there, and I think, Grace, how can you help us to know that it's important at times not to even be the battle creator?
Yeah, I mean, so in psychology, that's trauma response. You are always in that battle. You want to use it as a defense mechanism, so to speak. So, and yes, you're very correct. And again, it will take us back to self-awareness and understanding people. So empathy is something that is also a tool that one can use in terms of dealing with people that create. Nobody wants to in the real sense of it, nobody wants to be in a battlefield, except you're using it as a tool to get through. The first characteristics of a human being is to survive, to self-preserve. So for some people, when they don't know other means of doing things, they think it's a battle. You have to create a battle. You have to create, that mechanism. So one thing I would say is it is better for us to be open-minded, to understand that there are other things and there are other ways to self-preserve. There are other ways to deal with issues so that you don't complicate issues, because this is what happens when you're always in a battle state. Now, your body produces cortisol, which is the stress hormone. When you're always agitated, after a while, it starts to affect you physiologically and otherwise. So when people know better, I believe they do better. So when people that create battles for themselves just because that's the only way they can preserve themselves. Once they are open-minded and they understand that, oh, there are safer ways to self-preserve, there are safer ways to do things adequately, then it will help them to know they have options. Yes. So it's now seeking knowledge to understand the options that you have, retraining and learning and understanding yourself and what can help you be better and healthier.
Such a cool conversation, so helpful. And I love your reference to self-knowledge and self-awareness. Grace, we have to leave it there. We've run out of time. Where can we find some of the work that you do online as a life coach?
All right, on LinkedIn, my name is Grace Edibo, and on Instagram, Grace So Amazing. So that's where you can find me.
Yeah, you are amazing. Thank you for having this conversation with us, and all the best.
Thank you.
That's a Grace Edibo, life coach. What's your thought on that one? Are you one of those people who kind of involuntarily always kind of create battles? Or are you the one who's the silent type and you feel like, no, I'm not engaging in this one? Or is it difficult to navigate the two in choosing life battles? Give us your thoughts on +276 346 9126. It's time for us to move things on. It's 10:30 Central African time. Let's find out what's up in our news desk.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
First up in our sports update, it's football news. Uganda's technical team has reduced its CHAN 2024 squad to 29 players, with co-head coaches Molly Biekwaso and Fred Muhumuza narrowing down their options ahead of the Continental Showpiece in August. The tournament will be co-hosted by Uganda, Kenya and Tanzania from the 2nd to the 30th of August 2025. This trimmed squad is not final, but represents a key phase in selection, with the coaching duo set to announce the final 23-man list before the tournament kicked off. Former Cranes captain Dennis Onyango has temporarily joined the technical bench to assist with goalkeeping duties during the squad's camp. The Cranes opened their campaign against Algeria on the 4th of August at Nambole Stadium. A top European court will decide today whether double Olympic champion Caster Semenya can be required to lower her testosterone levels to compete as a woman in a key decision on contested gender testing. The European Court of Human Rights ECHR decision comes after a row engulfed the 2024 Paris Olympics over the gender of an Algerian boxing champion, Imani Khalif. South African runner Semenya was the only 800-meter champion in 2012 and 2016 and world gold medalist in 2009, 2011 and 2017. She is classed as having differences in sexual development, but has always been legally identified as female. Semenya has said she hopes the ECHR will protect athletes' human rights and inspire all young women to be and accept themselves in all their diversity. And the South African National Multi-Coded Sporting Body SASCOC President Barry Hendricks has urged the newly elected Athletics South Africa's board to take a measured and a careful approach in appointing a new CEO. Terence Magogodela has served as acting CEO for the past 4 years, and following last month's elections, the Federation is now seeking to make a permanent appointment. Hendricks cautioned against rushing the process, noting that it took SASCOC 6 months to appoint Nozipho Jafta as CEO in January 2022, following the passing of Tabi Reddy.
They've got to go back now because they were just elected last month. They've got to sit down and do a strategic workshop to determine what are the new strategies over the next 4 years and give themselves time frames to achieve that. Of course, with a permanent CEO, there's a process of writing up the job description as well as then going out onto the market to find a competent person doing the interviews. In SASCOC, that took up to 6 months. If you really want to do a proper job and find the most competent person.
Hendricks says there must be positive steps taken to rectify the wrongs of the past.
And you must remember, I've been through many sports where we've chosen CEOs, but they failed. If one looks at basketball, if one looks at a host of other federations where the CEOs came and went, Cricket South Africa is an example. And I'm not using this to berate those federations, I'm simply using it as an example that Sometimes we do make mistakes, sometimes it's up to the individual, but we've got to take a step back and try and correct it. Even Sascock, for example, where we had to fire the previous CEO. But if we don't take positive and constructive steps to correct something, then I have a problem with that.
Let's end with rugby news. The junior Springboks continued their perfect start and sealed top spot in their group in the World Rugby Under-20 Championship after thrashing Scotland 73-14 on Wednesday in Calvisano in Italy. The South Africans also beat Australia 73-17 and England 32-22 to book their spot in the semi-finals, and they probably did enough to secure the top seed position for the playoffs, which are scheduled to take place next Monday. Playing with purpose and showcasing their silky skills, the first half belonged to the junior Boks, who scored at more than a point per minute as they crossed the Scottish try line 7 times. The junior Boks lost a bit of momentum as Scotland stepped up their game, but the South Africans were probably also guilty of becoming a bit too loose as they tried to stretch their lead. They finally scored again on the hour mark as Everson stepped his way through the Scottish defence, and 4 minutes later Stephanus Linde rounded off a brilliant team try that started from a counter-attack in their own 22 with the handling simply brilliant. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Nwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9.
In recent weeks, East Africa has seen a disturbing rise in human rights violations. In Kenya, digital activist Rose Njeri was arrested under the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act after creating a tool for citizens to oppose the Finance Bill 2025. Meanwhile, in Tanzania, Kenyan activist Boniface Mwangi and Ugandan lawyer Agatha Atuhaire reported being detained, tortured, and sexually assaulted by security officers.
East Africa needs a reset. We need to get back East Africa to where the founding fathers are. You know, when President Nyerere and his colleagues Jomo Kenyatta and the Ugandan counterparts fought for independence, they fought for independence to get Africans out of poverty, to get Africans out of slavery. The leaders who took up power have since gotten into regression.
Neto Agostino, co-leader of the United Green Movement Party.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. On the move, weekdays, 9 a.m. to midday. Only on Channel Africa. #On the move.
Thank you for that sports update, Figile Nwadi. Let's keep updated with what's going on in the news. This is our latest in business.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Palesa, and good morning. Organisers of the Africa Unlocked conference taking place in Cape Town, South Africa, say the gathering has been convened by business to shape Africa's tomorrow. The conference has brought together Africa's most influential business leaders, investors, policymakers and entrepreneurs. It is hosted by Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. The meeting, in its second year running, has cemented itself as a key platform on discussions affecting the continent. Group Head of Agribusiness at Business and Commercial Banking, Standard Bank Group, Louis van Ravestein.
We're getting business leaders across the continent together from about 15, 16 countries. It's about 120 of our top business customers coming together here in Cape Town, from as far as Ghana to Kenya, down to South Africa. It's all about how does business shape Africa's tomorrow. It's about this big opportunity of the Africa continent. It's how do we do more trade together? How do we work more together? And how do we capture this big opportunity?
Brazil's President Lula da Silva has hit back at U.S. President Donald Trump's announcement of a 50% tariff on Brazilian exports to the United States, warning that it would be addressed in terms of Brazil's reciprocity laws. President Lula, who just presided over a BRICS leaders summit in Rio de Janeiro, has responded on social media to a letter in which President Trump announced a 50% tariff from the 1st of August. Trump also railed against the trial of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, who faces coup charges for allegedly seeking to remain in power after losing the 2022 presidential election to Lula. Sharon Bryce-Peace reports from New York.
Trump's letter posted to Truth Social said the treatment of Bolsonaro was an international disgrace, calling his trial a witch hunt that should not be taking place, echoing his judicial woes before winning last November's election, which squashed his own legal peril. Trump indicated that the 50% tariff was linked to what he called Brazil's insidious attacks on free elections and censorship orders against American social media companies. President Lula responded that Brazil was a sovereign nation with independent institutions and would not accept any form of tutelage, arguing that all companies operating in-country had to comply with Brazilian law. Sharon Bryce-Peace, SABC News, New York.
Meanwhile, the U.S. President Donald Trump maintains that the BRICS group of rapidly growing economies were hell-bent on destroying the U.S. dollar's global dominance. This comes after the U.S. intensified its opposition to the BRICS groups Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, cautioning that their efforts to challenge the dollar pose a risk to America's economic leadership.
I thought BRICS was, I said this about a year ago, and it largely broke up. But, there are a couple that hang around, but I thought it largely broke up. BRICS is not, in my opinion, not a serious threat. But what they're trying to do is destroy the dollar so that another country can take over and be the standard. And we're not going to lose the standard at any time. If you have a smart president, you will never lose the standard. If you have a stupid president, like the last one, you would lose the standard.
The South African Cane Growers Association has expressed concern about the 30% tariff on South African sugar exports to the U.S. The tariffs are set to take place on the 1st of August. They say the move could render the country's sugar uncompetitive in the U.S. and emphasized the need to protect the local industry from the ongoing threat of unfairly priced imports. The association represents over 20,000 small-scale farmers and 1,200 large-scale growers. Chief Executive Officer of SA Cane Growers, Dr. Thomas Feinke.
The increase in the tariff to the U.S. will have an impact on the South African sugar industry. We send 24,000 tons of sugar to the U.S. every year. And in the past, this was done at a zero import duty due to the quota. The 30% tariff on the sugar will make us uncompetitive in that market, and that will mean we will have to drop our price in order to compete with other countries.
Eurozone bond yields inched lower in early trading as a strong U.S. Treasury auction in the previous session offers support to global government bonds. Germany's 10-year yield, the benchmark for the currency bloc, was down 1 basis point, 2.62%. It hit a 6-week top of 2.668% earlier in the week, but has since been gradually moving lower. Eurozone investors remain on the sidelines as they await the outcome of US-EU trade talks, leaving markets in a holding pattern until a deal is reached. The dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 530. Botswana 13.21. Kenya 128 shilling 495. And Zambia 24 kwacha 30. BRICS countries of the dollar in Brazil 5 real 47. Russia 78 rubles 23. India 85 rupees 72. China 71.17, and in South Africa the dollar will cost you 17 rand 79 cents. 73 pence British pound, 85 euro, gold $3,322, platinum $1,344 per ounce. Brand crude oil is at $70.14 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabiso Lohoko.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
SABC Sport brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting 13 July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2, tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache, and the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus, anytime, anywhere. No subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun, this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
9 to 12 midday, Central African Time. On the move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama. With Joel Muteba. We go to Eastern Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tebogo Lepoleni and Matseko Musito.
I'm an old man, everyone.
And our entire team has come into studio to come and wish Benjamin a happy, happy birthday. And I'm sure you guys fixed your voices? Are you ready?
It better be an orchestra.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Benji. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, guys.
Two? No. Is he 3? No. Is he 50? No. Is he 40? Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, guys. Thank you. You're making me very shy.
Now, maybe it's time for us to speak about those reflections you spoke about a little bit earlier, Benji, when you're speaking about, turning 40. It might feel the same as when you were 31 yesterday or 39 yesterday, but it's definitely, a different path and a different point in your life. So tell me a little bit about that.
I've been just thinking about it, like just being grateful for life. But, I think for most of my life, I've been just thinking about myself and working on my career, working on my personal goals. And now I'm like, okay, what do you do when you've actually achieved most of the things that you've wanted in your life? And I've actually been thinking that it's time for me to serve others, a little bit more. So that is kind of a very tricky situation that I'm in, like less of me and more of them. So I've been thinking about that a lot. Like, how do I start serving the people around me? How do I start serving people in my community? And I don't know where the thought is going to take me or if I'm going to actually go in that direction. But I've been thinking a lot about serving others these days.
I love that.
It's such a strange thing happening in my head.
Well, strange things happen when we get older. And I think you're an incredible person.
Thank you, buddy. You're also incredible yourself.
I think you're an incredible person. I really do enjoy working with you. We've gone through a lot of ups, more ups than downs.
Yes.
And, our working relationship has always been a great one.
Yeah.
You're an incredible broadcaster, and I
Thank you.
enjoy working with you. I've learned a lot from you as well.
Yeah, me too.
So I wish you long life.
Thank you, Pali. Thank you. You're making me so shy today. Yay, man.
And of course, the birthday wishes don't end there. I hear we have a voice note coming through.
Okay.
So let's hear who has what to say.
Mommy! That's the best voice to ever hear. Pali's mom.
Happy birthday, my son, and many more.
Thank you, mommy.
Your mom.
Thank you, mommy. Love you so much, mommy. That's Pali's mom. She's one of our biggest fans on our show, we really love her.
Well, you guys also have an opportunity to send Benji those happy birthday messages. Do that on our social media platforms. We are at Channel Africa 1. Find us live streaming. You'll see Ben's little banner, happy 40th birthday, and his balloon. Send him those 40th birthday wishes. We'd love to hear from you at Channel Africa 1. It's 10:50 Central Africa time.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa. Nelson Mandela taught us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it.
We should all bear in mind that the greatest glory of living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time you fall.
This Mandela Month, Channel Africa salutes everyday heroes. On Channel Africa, the African perspective. Catch us on Satellite Channel PAS 10. Call us on +27 63 406 9126 and contribute to the conversation. Amengubeni talks money. Africa in business. 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6. We put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tebogo Lepoleni and Matseko Musito. Tamengubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tebogo Lekwaleni and Matseko Musito.
All the love, Fireboy, DML, and Love Peruzzi coming through on this one at 10:53 Central Africa time. Now you guys know where I get all my birthday excitement from.
Yeah,
it's
your
definitely
mom.
from my mom and my family because we love celebrating birthdays. And I know not a lot of people actually love celebrating birthdays.
Yeah.
Some people are like, oh, I'm not really a birthday person, but you can't do that around me.
Yeah, I've never been a birthday person, but with you I have no choice.
No,
right?
you have no choice because you chose me and you have to stick by me, and now your birthdays have to be a thing. Okay?
I'm telling you, she's such a birthday person that she found a happy 40th birthday banner. Have we spoken enough about this?
No.
Yeah, like the 40th banner. Who finds a 40th banner? 40th birthday banner.
It is me. I will find it. I know the banners usually just say happy birthday, but I want my banner to be specific.
Yeah, shut up, Ben.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Ben.
Birthday Ben. Happy 40th birthday Ben is the only thing that's missing from this banner.
Yeah, no, the 40th. That surprised me with that banner. I was like, no way. I'm sure no one will go out looking for a happy 40th birthday banner.
Well, you don't know me. If it's not just anyone, I'm not just anyone.
Well, we've got a lot still coming up on the show, and we just had such an important conversation with our Becoming feature. But a little bit later on, we'll speak about interfaith marriages, interfaith relationships. It's a tricky one when it comes to that because you can meet someone, right, in a very neutral environment. Maybe you guys share the same faith, but things get very tricky when you actually move on in life with the same person and the person decides to change their faiths or actually become agnostic. And you're like, okay, so what happens because we met as people who are part of this particular faith?
Yeah, it can be quite tricky because there's so many things to consider, especially if you're trying to build a family with someone. If you're a couple that wants children, you have to have conversations about that. Both your families, because obviously from the African context, you don't just marry a partner, right?
Yeah.
You marry their family and you marry into their family as well. And you have to also navigate those complexities of what the family think and how they'll take those particular decisions that you guys make, which aren't just yours in the African context. They belong to everyone who's a part of that particular unit. So it will be interesting to really see how to navigate those spaces, interfaith, but also those who don't really subscribe to any faith, who are in relationships with those who do subscribe to faith. So also that dynamic is a different one altogether. African spirituality is a big part of that conversation as well, because we know that there are faiths that might be clashing with African spirituality or are said to clash with African spirituality. It's a big one. How do you also sustain a relationship like that? Because you might say, no, this person's faith is not going to implicate me, or I'm not going to interact with it in any way. But as long as you're interacting with your partner in some way, you will be interacting with their faith.
Because I'm thinking about maybe a relationship that started on maybe a religious belief system, right?
Yeah.
And used to spend maybe time together, praying together.
Yes.
Such an important element. Maybe you were praying with your partner together in that one faith, and that person decides, you know what, I don't subscribe to that faith anymore. That sacred practice of praying together, what happens to that?
Yeah.
Now
because you must pray apart.
Yeah. Or do you pray different prayers of the different faiths in the same room together?
Yeah.
What do you do, and how do you navigate that?
So we're going to chat about that.
What do the children practice?
What do the children practice? That's also another one, right?
Yeah.
It's another layer, because that's the thing. If you guys do decide to have children, or if you already have children, you're like, okay, we can subscribe to different things. We're adults. We have our own. We have a right to make our own decisions. But what then do we decide for our children? Because do they go? Maybe if your faith goes to church on Saturday and mine goes to Sunday, do the children go to church both on Saturday and on Sunday? The poor kids have to deal with a lot now. So that also a big conversation and a big complexity that goes into that space.
Yeah, it's a very difficult one. I've got so many questions on this one, especially when it comes to rituals as well, because around a lot of our practices, rituals are there in all religions.
Yes.
And those kind of rituals, should you participate, you have the right to say, you know what, I don't want to participate in this ritual. I don't want to go to church with you on a Sunday, actually.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to slaughter a cow. If you want to slaughter anything, do not do it in our yard because my belief system does not subscribe to that. Rather, take it to a different location.
Yeah, no. And I'm sure these are things that a lot of people actually go through on a daily basis with interfaith relationships, especially in the context of like South Africa, for example, which is a place that observes many religions, many practices, and constitutionally respects all of them and recognizes all of them. There are countries, obviously, around the world that don't have those in their constitution, and usually that country will, practice one particular faith. But in a place where all faiths are allowed and all practices are allowed, how do you are more likely to come across an interfaith relationship?
Yeah. Another question I have is based on if someone changes their faith, are you supposed to just go along with it, or can you say no? This is the end. Let's leave things.
Because I think you have to think about that.
I'm done. That's something that I don't want in my life. I don't want to practice that religion, and I don't want it near me.
Yeah.
So does that mean it's the end of the relationship?
It could be. It could be. Are you willing to lose a relationship because of those interfaith practices?
Yeah, that's what's coming up on the show a little bit later. But right now, let's move on to the latest news. We've got Joalane Tulengwepe standing by, and she's going to let us know what's happening in the news on the continent and abroad.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin. Top stories: the Sawa death toll likely to rise in Kenya protests, and US announcing sanctions on the UN Human Rights Council special rapporteur. Good morning. Police in Kenya are being accused of covering up injuries and fatalities in the current protests in the country. Kenya's Human Rights Commission says 31 people died and more than 100 were injured during Monday's clashes with police. Official government figures, on the other hand, have put the death toll at 11. President William Ruto has angrily denounced the anti-government protests, vowing to use whatever means necessary to ensure peace and stability. Channel Africa's correspondent in Kenya, Alex Kayari, says the death toll is likely to rise.
But now the most interesting thing is that what a trend that is emerging is that whenever police officers shot and killed somebody or even injured that person, they rushed these persons or the victims to local hospitals, public hospitals, where bullets are removed from their bodies before they are released to their families, and then documents destroyed. We are dealing with a case in Limuru. I talked about the child who was shot 3 times, but the police officers took that boy to the hospital, had the bullets removed, and then the medical documents retained by the police actually taken away from the father, but the father was forced to pay for the bills that they incurred.
South Africa's parliament has assured the public that it will apply consequence management in its handling of KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's damning allegations. Mkhwanazi has accused the police minister Senzo Mchunu and senior police officials of corruption, having links with criminal syndicates and interfering in police operations. National Assembly Speaker Togo Didiza has tasked 3 key oversight committees to urgently investigate the matter. Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Justice and Constitutional Development Chairperson Ola Ngola says they will deliver their joint findings before the 23rd of this month.
We've been given a mandate to look into the matter in a form of a joint committee arrangement, which is sitting next week, and report to the National Assembly before the 23rd day of July 2025. So the mandate is that let's look into what has been alleged and advise Parliament what form should it take, because the matter at hand, not properly attended, it may lead to unintended consequences. We assure South Africans that consequence management will definitely follow immediately after we have determined the shape of how Parliament must deal with the matter.
The United Nations Programme on HIV and AIDS is set to release a new report on global infection today, this after warning that the US cuts to humanitarian funding and other donors could result in millions of new cases and AIDS-related deaths. The UN says previous American funding had helped to cut HIV infections by 60% since 2000. The executive director for UNAIDS program, Winnie Binyima, says funding is the responsibility of the global community.
Funding crisis is not the result of just one country cutting. We need to renew the global solidarity. Global challenges like a pandemic, like HIV, can't be solved by individual countries. It's a global effort that can help us end a global challenge.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has announced that he's imposing sanctions on Francesca Albanese, the United Nations Human Rights Council Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territory. The Italian citizen and academic is essentially an independent expert that the Geneva-based council has appointed. She is a strong critic of Israel's war in Gaza and a supporter of the rights of Palestinians. Sharon Bryce-Pease reports.
Rubio says Albanese's campaign of political and economic warfare against the United States and Israel would no longer be tolerated, and that the United States would always stand by its partners in their right to self-defense. Last week, Albanese, who refers to Israel's war in Gaza as a genocide, called for explanations from countries including Italy, France and Greece for allowing a plane carrying Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to fly over their airspace en route to the United States, arguing that they might have flouted their Rome Statute obligations to arrest the ICC indicted leader. She also released a report earlier this month detailing corporations she argues aids Israel in its war in Gaza, urging the ICC to investigate and prosecute corporate executives and entities.
The Minister of Higher Education in Malawi, Dr. Jessica Kabila, says their education system is tailored in such a way that it promotes Pan-Africanism and further says Malawi is a solution to a lot of governments around the continent. Dr. Kabila was speaking to Peter Ndoro on the latest episode of Channel Africa Conversations podcast.
One of the things that you see in the education of Malawi, higher education, is that we are more Pan-Africanist. We are teaching our students, or let me say engaging our students, because it's not as if it's a top-bottom approach that we are using. We are engaging them not only to work with their communities and harness indigenous knowledge, but not to look down on themselves. They need to know that Malawi is a place where things happen. We are open for business. We are making things. We are looking into value addition. We are open for business, and we are a success. We are not going around apologizing for who we are. We are saying Malawi is the solution.
For a full-length interview, be sure to catch the latest episode of Channel Africa Conversations podcast on our YouTube channel. Recapping the top story this hour, police in Kenya are being accused of covering up injuries and fatalities in the current protests in the country. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulo Webe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
All right, thank you so much, Jwalane. Thanks for holding it down this morning. Jwalane has been here in the early morning to make sure that we updated in the news. Remember, at around 11:30 Central African time, we always give you the latest sports from a continental viewpoint. And also at around 11:35, we'll give you the latest business news on the African continent. Hey, we are getting into our latest feature, and that is us looking at interfaith marriages. You can actually start a relationship on a very smooth level, whereby maybe you've met someone at the same mosque, at the same church, maybe from a context of a cultural event, and you guys had kind of the same thing. You know, at times you feel like, okay, because we've met in the same scenario, in the same situation, we believe the same things. But as time continues, as a relationship matures, one person in the relationship can decide to change their faiths, or maybe adapt something new into their faith. And maybe you're like, no, how did this happen? I met you at church. I met you at mosque. Why are we now actually entertaining other things? But also, even when you start a relationship on a healthy interfaith momentum, where you both agree to have different faiths, how do you navigate that dynamic of what are the children going to practice? Other questions, what kind of food are we going to eat? And another dynamic can be, what kind of clothes are we going to wear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many things can actually come up from that. That's the conversation we're having in this hour of the show. Of course, you're the most important part of this conversation, so join us on our social media platforms. We are streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube. Find us there. We are at Channel Africa 1. And you can also have your say on our other social media platforms at Channel Africa 1 on X, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and YouTube. Let's go. It's the third hour of On The Move.
Zochitika ndi madaphiri kamlondola wazochitika pena paliponse.
Nduna wazamalonda kumalawi waletsa kampani yopanga shuga ya Ilovo yomwe ndi nthambi ya Ilovo Sugar Group Limited kuti isiye kutumiza shuga kumaiko akunja. Malingana ndi nduna ya zamalonda Vitumbuko Mumba, izi zithandiza kuti shuga yemwe yakusowa pamsika azipezeka. Ndiye pano ndili ndi George Muhangu amene ali mu mzinda wa Blantyre mu dziko la Malawi. Chimene chikupangitsa kuti shuga azisowa ndi chani?
Chomwe chikupangitsa kuti shuga azisowa ndichonena kuti panopo ili ngati off season ya makampani a Ilovo Sugar Malawi, kunena kuti sakutha kupanga shugayi okwanira chifukwa akukolola. Ndiye akamaliza kukolola pameneno atayambeno sopano kugaya shugayi kuti azipezeka. Chinanso ndichonena kuti ma distributors amene akumakagula shuga kaya ndi ku Ilovo kaya ndi kusalima shuga akumagulisa ku maiko akunja ngati Zambia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Mozambique.
Zochitika ndi madaphiri lolemba mpaka lachisanu pa nthawi ya 7 koloko kufikira 8 koloko madzulo pa Channel Africa.
Mzansi, this is more than just a game, it's a celebration of history. 30 years ago, the Springboks united our nation with that iconic Rugby World Cup victory. And now, the mighty Boks are back. Don't miss South Africa versus Italy in the 30th anniversary commemoration match this Saturday, 12th July at 4 p.m. Watch it live on SABC2 or stream it anywhere on the SABC Plus app. Download the SABC Plus app today on iOS, Android, or your smart TV. Switch to stream, no subscription. SABC Sport, for the love of the game.
Channel Africa and you have got something in common. The thirst for knowledge. Palesa and Benjamin fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
Hey, this is our parenting and family corner, and it's time for us to look at a family matter or a parenting issue, and we'll bring the both into this one because I think they are related. Today we're going to be speaking about interfaith marriages, where partners come from different religious backgrounds, or maybe you start off with the same faith and one person down the line decides to say, you know what, I'm choosing a different path. How do you navigate that? There are complex dynamics, especially when you come from different spiritual beliefs. There are family expectations of how you raise your children, celebrating holidays, what to actually wear, what to eat in the household. We explore the joys and the challenges, the compromises that also need to be made in this African context. Well, joining us, we've got Desola Susan, who's a parenting expert, who's joining us from the UK. We also have Mkhulu Nobamba Zulu, a founder of Gwa Nobamba Family, Spiritual and Mental Wellness Institute. Desola, thank you for joining us. Mkhulu Zulu, thank you for joining us as well. Let me start with you, Desola, in terms of how do we characterize interfaith relationships or marriages?
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I think this is a really important conversation. The world is becoming a global village, and lines are getting blurred every now and again, especially when it comes to marriage. For me, I think it's important to highlight the fact that a marriage is the coming together of two different people, different in terms of personality, different in terms of ideology, and in this case, different in terms of faith. What would be easy to navigate is if everybody was exactly alike. But there are no two people who are alike. We're all a product of our upbringing and all the influences that have brought us this far. And when interfaith marriage is occurring, it's important to establish the non-negotiables, right? It's important to be clear on what individual beliefs are. Now, every religion has its own perspective and dynamic, but usually you would find that there are points of alignment across all faiths. And if that conversation is had early on in the relationship, before marriage even, it's easier to clarify where those alignments are and where there might be potential for conflict in future. So that's the approach that is recommended when a situation like this presents itself.
A fantastic way to start. Let me come to you, Mkhulu Zulu. What's your take in terms of how you would describe an interfaith relationship?
Okay, look, my take is, first we need to define why are two people in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
When people are in a relationship that leads into a marriage, it's because they want to build a family, they want to create a family, which in the spiritual context, African spiritual context, is that you are expanding your family tree, right? Mm-hmm. So a woman, according to African culture and African spirituality, is married into the man's family. The family that is being expanded is the bloodline of the man, right? And when two people get into a relationship, of course they need to talk about who they are so they get to know each other. So two people don't just get into a relationship and decide to get married without knowing who is this stranger that I'm getting married to. It starts there, because if you think you're going to start negotiating when you are married, already you are negotiating on top of conflict. So it is very important that when two people meet, whether you meet at the church or you meet in the streets or wherever you meet, if you are starting a relationship, the starting point is, who are you? Who is this person that I am starting a relationship with? Because then that relationship will then lead into what we call a marriage. And in the African spirituality context, marriage is not just between the two people. Marriage is also ancestral. It's bringing the two different families coming from different backgrounds together. And that is why there would then be rituals.
But can you practice different faiths even in that context that you're giving us from an African viewpoint?
Look, faith is a choice. That's where we need to start. So spirituality is not a choice. Spirituality is connected to your bloodline, right? And faith, you choosing a religion which comes secondary. It's a choice. That is why people choose different churches, right? So that is why I'm saying it is important when you meet a partner, a potential a marriage, you then need to. Those are the first things that you need to negotiate. You need to first come to terms with the fact that you are two different people from two different backgrounds, and how are you going to navigate that? That you need to understand each other from that point first. So two people from two different backgrounds or two different faiths, maybe if you want to call it faith, they can get married and they can even have children as long as they are able to sit down and have conversations. Because what is important here, everything in a marriage is negotiated.
Okay. That negotiation is something, sorry to stop you there. That negotiation is something I want us to expand on. Let me come back to you, Desola, because both you and Mkhulu Zulu have completely different interpretations of this idea of interfaith marriage, right? But that negotiation that you both have highlighted, very nuanced and different from each other, is something that can actually be something that's difficult to do, because when you love someone, you, especially at the beginning of a relationship, you accept them more than you negotiating with them, and maybe over time you learn different things about that particular person. And I'm sure that as a relationship starts, you're not negotiating everything. You're probably negotiating the essentials, but I doubt you negotiating spirituality or you negotiating faith values. I'm sure that's the last thing you're thinking about.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to mention that this is where systems come into play. When all those feelings and those emotions are working out, and like you said, you're not thinking long term. You're not thinking what will happen 10 years, 20 years down the line, because you're feeling all happy and, you have those hormones running through your body. You're thinking, oh, everything will figure itself out and it will be fine. But the truth is, conflict does arise. And it's what you do in those moments where you're still happy together. It's those systems and structures that you put in place that will then support you when situations arise. So for us, we recommend family systems, putting systems and structures in place. And like I said initially, it begins with a recognition of what those alignment points are in terms of beliefs, right? We're zoning in on faith here. So you need to recognize where that person is coming from. What are those things that are fundamental to them? Things that they're not likely to shift about. So if you've referenced Christians and Muslims, for instance, some denominations, even though they are the same, have variations in them. So somebody might be, they might both be Christians, but see the practice of that religion from two different perspectives. So it's important to identify what another person, what they can shift away from, what compromises can be made, and what is absolutely fundamental to them, such that the idea of contemplating change in that will be difficult for them. So going back to the idea of systems, when those when that idea, when the beliefs are situated and perhaps they found points of alignment, then you need to go ahead to create family systems. And the top one, the one at the highest level that is absolutely critical, is the governance system. And this is where you outline what your family vision is. Where is it that you're headed as a family? What is it that you're hoping to achieve? What impact is your family going to make on the world around it? Then you want to look at your family values. You want to identify those elements that you are going to characterize your family, those things that you're going to then inject into the children as you parents live them out. Then you want to go further and create a family constitution. Once this happens, what do we do? What are the expectations of behavior? When you work out all of those, you put them together, you can create a family creed where you read out every day. We recommend putting it in every room.
Sure.
And when I say we, I mean family systems engineering practitioners. Put it in every room. So everyone is conscious and they're aware of what is expected of them. Now, when you do all of this, then the family becomes self-sustaining, that even when there are issues with faith, we go back to that initial document. This is where we're going. How does our behavior on the choices we're trying to make now, how does it align or deviate from that?
Thank you so much for that. That was such a comprehensive response. And there's so many elements that you highlighted there that I think we need to also dig in deeper, because you're a parenting expert. So I'd like to look at the parenting elements, because if you are practicing different faiths, do the children practice both? What happens there? And then we're going to come to you, Mkhulu Zulu. I want to get your thoughts there on the value system, because I know values are also part of African spirituality and how we run our families there. Let's take a break. We'll be back.
This Mandela Month, Channel Africa invites you to walk in the footsteps of a giant. From the prison yard of Robben Island to the halls of the United Nations, Nelson Mandela's legacy reminds us that service, compassion, and justice are the building blocks of real freedom.
En cette journée Mandela, que nos actions fassent écho à son héritage.
Alionyesha dunia ya kwamba sauti moja yaweza kuhamasisha mataifa.
Mandela ensinou-nos que a liberdade não é dada, mas sim conquistada através da coragem e sacrifício.
Join us as we reflect, remember, and reignite the spirit of Madiba across the continent. This is more than a day. It's a call to action. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go. Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
We're having a conversation about navigating interfaith marriages or relationships where partners come from different religious backgrounds or are becoming more common in African countries. How do we navigate those? We're still having this conversation with Desola Sosan, a parenting expert in the UK, and Kulu Nobamba Zulu, the founder of Kwanobamba Family Spiritual and Mental Wellness Institute. Let's speak about that children aspect, Desola, because it brings in a whole new dynamic into this relationship, whether these two who are coming together already have children or whether they want children within their marriage. It's a big conversation to have if you are an interfaith relationship, to which, first of all, which faith do the children practice and what are different nuances that we need to navigate and look at in this particular scenario?
Amazing. So I think it's important for us to note that faith is meant for the sustenance of the human or the human species, people. Religion is created by people to put certain ideologies in place and create structure around beliefs, right? At the end of the day, it's the wholeness of the individual that is priority, okay? And that's why it's very I would say, just to be a little bit controversial, we cannot say one's religion is superior to the other. And I think when it's approached from this perspective, then it's not a case of the children must practice a certain religion. It is, what do we believe as a family? And like I said earlier, when that agreement has been created, recognizing that two individuals are coming together to create something absolutely new that has never existed before, a family can choose to chart their own course. What they then describe it as is up to them. So if the man and the woman have said, all right, we are practicing different faiths, but we have fundamentals that are aligned, some people would look at the origins of different religions and look at the fact that love is a unifying factor. So if love becomes a family value, then what the children are experiencing in the home is love. How that then is expressed in terms of religion and in terms of faith becomes a decision that is the children are allowed to decide on when they're grown. Now, there will be discussions around family holidays. What do we do when this happens? What do we do when we're celebrating a certain time of the year? You know, every religion has sacred times and events, you know. So the family can incorporate both. At the end of the day, the child is going to toe the path that they're going to toe. And there is honestly no absolute guarantee that the religion the child is introduced to is what they're going to follow through life. So it's recognizing that the child would eventually find their path. The job of the parents is to show them that path. And if they live their lives in a way that their ideals become appealing enough to the children, then the children then have two options to follow. At the end of the day, it's those values that are critical, the quality of the individual that is delivered to society. That is what the focus of the parent should be, not necessarily insisting and saying, look, you must do this, you must do that. If a child grows up in a certain culture, with a certain series of ideologies, they will grow up and live that. If the parent, I would say, if the parent is able to help a child accept their own point of view as theirs, then they would have been successful. If they're trying to do it with manipulation and with force, that is when they will run into a brick wall. That's when they will run into difficulty and challenges. But if they live those values out and they create those systems and those structures that give the children an opportunity to experience both religions, then when they come into their own and they're growing up and they have that maturity, then they can choose the path that they would want to follow.
All right. You are of the school of thought, Mkhulu Nobamba, that, African spirituality is not a choice, and it's happening within us and it's happening with us, and, it's all encompassing within who we are. So in the place where, there's one person who does believe in African spirituality and practices, or maybe even has a calling and practices in depth their African spirituality, is with a partner of a different faith who doesn't believe in African spirituality. Do you think children can thrive under those circumstances, or are there actually circumstances where one has to say these two people cannot be together?
Okay. Look, yes, African spirituality is not a choice. So we're just calling it African spirituality, but it's spirituality. It's not a choice. It's not an ideology that you choose. You want to believe in this, you don't want to practice this or not. It's not like religion. We are born with it. It's from within our bloodline. It's from within our families, right? So when two people get married, especially in Africa, because in Africa we've got a cultural and spiritual heritages that we are accustomed to. When two people get married, unless if you are talking about an African and a European, that's a very different one, but if it's two people from Africa, from South Africa getting married, from the same background, they just differ with the beliefs, because that's what is dividing people nowadays. You get married to a person, whether you met in the church, you get married to a person who later or comes from a family that is inclined to African spirituality, and both of you maybe would have chosen the church, and later on African spirituality kicks in, because you don't invite it, it just happens to you. And those two people who are in a relationship need to sit down and say, now this has happened, what do we do? Because remember, it's not a matter of I believe in this, I don't believe in this. This person who is experiencing the challenges with African spirituality is struggling. It's not something that you can decide, no, I'm not doing this thing, or no, we must negotiate how we're going to do it. The two people must be able to sit down and say, I'm watching my partner struggling with this thing, and I need to support my partner. But that is the reason why you are in a relationship. Support my partner goes through this thing, so that our family is does well. Our children are also learning from us. My colleague there spoke about the family values. Values are everywhere; they cut across. Whether you are a Christian, whether you practice in African culture, values are the base of building any family.
Okay.
How you negotiate the ways that you are going to build your family and the ways that you're going to raise your children is very important. You don't negotiate spirituality, but you negotiate how you are going to navigate through spirituality. Whether one partner is going to church and the other one is not going to church, the children should not be made to choose. They should be explained to. This is the culture of the family, and this is what is happening to either your mother or your father, but the other partner still chooses to go to church. We should not be choosing whether we want to be part of this or not part of this.
We chose one thing, the relationship. That's where it starts. Once you choose the relationship, it comes with its own baggage.
Yeah. All right, we'll have to leave it there. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I appreciate that, because you're right. Every relationship does come with its own set of challenges and its own baggage. And if you are going to decide to be in an interfaith relationship, you have to make an intentional and added effort to work through those challenges. Thank you so much to both you, Desola Sosan, parenting expert and founder of Kwanobamba Family Spiritual and Mental Wellness Institute, Mkhulu Nobamba Zulu. Thank you for your time. It's 11:32 Central Africa time. We're a little bit late. Sorry, Figilele Ngwati. May you please give us our latest sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
In this hour, we start off with the breaking story. The European Court of Human Rights has reignited Caster Semenya long legal battle against sport authorities over sex eligibility rules and regulations. This follows its ruling in favor of Semenya. This after finding that Switzerland had violated her right to freedom from discrimination, taken together with a right to respect for private life and earn a living through sport. The Swiss government was the respondent. In 2023, it appealed a ruling requesting the case be referred to the European Court of Human Rights Grand Chamber. The Grand Chamber's ruling is final. Uganda's technical team has reduced its CHAN 2024 squad to 29 players, with co-head coaches Molly Bwekwaso and Fred Muhumuza narrowing down their options ahead of the Continental Showpiece in August. A tournament will be co-hosted by Uganda, Kenya and Tanzania from the 2nd to the 30th of August 2025. This trimmed squad is not final, but represents a key phase in selection, with the coaching duo set to announce the final 23-man list before the tournament kickoff. Former Cranes captain Dennis Onyango has temporarily joined the technical bench to assist with goalkeeping duties during the squad's camp. The Cranes opened their campaign against Algeria on the 4th of August at Nambole Stadium. And South Africa's national multi-coded sporting body, SASCOC President Barry Hendricks, has urged the newly elected Athletics South Africa board to take a measured and a careful approach in appointing a new CEO. Terence Magogodela has served as acting CEO for the past 4 years, and following last month's election, the federation is now seeking to make a permanent appointment. Hendricks cautioned against rushing the process, noting that it took SASCOC 6 months to appoint Nozipho Jafta as CEO in January 2022, following the passing of Tabi Reddy.
They've got to go back now because they were just elected last month. They've got to sit down and do a strategic workshop to determine what are the new strategies over the next 4 years and give themselves time frames to achieve that. Of course, with a permanent CEO, there's a process of writing up the job description, as well as then going out onto the market to find a competent person, doing the interviews. In SASCOC, that took up to 6 months. If you really want to do a proper job and find the most competent person.
And finally, with volleyball, a major boost for volleyball development is underway in Tanzania as 37 coaches from across Africa gather in Dar es Salaam for the prestigious VIVB Coaches Level 1 course. The course is an internationally recognized training program designed to sharpen technical and tactical coaching skills to world-class standards. The 5-day intensive course that will end on the 12th of July is a landmark event jointly organized by the International Volleyball Federation and the Tanzania Volleyball Federation, TVF. It marks a significant step in empowering African coaches with modern methodologies aligned with global best practices. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lengwadi.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. This Mandela Month, we honor his belief that education is the most powerful weapon to change the world.
Education is one of the most important weapons in a country.
Catch us on DSTV Bouquet 802. Step into the heart of the day on the move with Palesa and Benjamin. 9 to 12 midday, Central African Time. On the Move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
Thank you so much, File Lengwati. Let's get our latest business news from Thabiso Lehogo.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Palesa, and good morning. Nigeria has secured a $747 million syndicated loan led by Deutsche Bank to finance construction of the first phase of its planned 700-kilometer coastal highway project. Finance Ministry spokesperson Mohammed Manga says the loan is the first of its size for road infrastructure in Nigeria. Deutsche Bank acted as global coordinator in the syndicate, which includes First Abu Dhabi Bank, African Export-Import Bank, Abu Dhabi Exports Office, ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, and Zenith Bank. Manga says the initial section of the highway financed by the loan spans 47.47 kilometers. The entire project is expected to cost around $11 billion and be completed in about 8 years. The highway will eventually link the commercial capital Lagos to the southeastern port of Calabar. Still in Nigeria, the United States has announced sweeping changes to its non-immigrant visa policy for Nigeria. It has cut the duration and conditions under which most Nigerian travelers can enter the country. With effect from the 8th of this month, the U.S. Department of State says nearly all non-immigrant and non-diplomatic visas issued to Nigerian citizens will now be single entry and valid for only 3 months. It says that this is part of a global reciprocity realignment, a sharp shift from previous visa terms, which often allowed for multiple entries over 2 years or more. The Nigerian government has not yet commented. Organizers of the Africa Unlocked conference taking place in Cape Town, South Africa, say the gathering has been convened by business to shape Africa's tomorrow. The conference has brought together Africa's most influential business leaders, investors, policymakers and entrepreneurs. It is hosted by Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. The meeting, in its second year running, has cemented itself as a key platform on discussions affecting the continent. Group Head of Agribusiness and Commercial Banking, Standard Bank Group, Louis van Rijfsteen.
It's about 120 of our top business customers coming together here in Cape Town, from as far as Ghana to Kenya, down to South Africa. It's all about how does business shape Africa's tomorrow. It's about this big opportunity of the Africa continent. It's how do we do more trade together? How do we work more together? And how do we capture this big opportunity?
The South African rand has gained in early trade before the release of domestic manufacturing data, while investors also kept a close tab on trade negotiations after U.S. President Donald Trump's latest tariff threats. The rand traded at 17.7350 against the dollar, up roughly 0.6% from Wednesday's close. Statistics South Africa will publish May manufacturing output. Production fell 6.3% year-on-year in April, but analysts polled by Reuters and Nedbank economists expected to have fallen by a smaller margin this time around of 1.5 and 0.5% respectively. And finally, Brazil's President Lula da Silva has hit back at U.S. President Donald Trump's announcement of a 50% tariff on Brazilian exports to the United States, warning that it would be addressed in terms of Brazil's reciprocity law. President Lula, who just presided over a BRICS Leaders Summit in Rio de Janeiro, has responded on social media to a letter in which President Donald Trump announced a 50% tariff from the 1st of August. Trump also railed against the trial of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, who faces coup charges for allegedly seeking to remain in power after losing the 2022 presidential election to Lula. Showen Braspies reports from New York.
Trump indicated that the 50% tariff was linked to what he called Brazil's insidious attacks on free elections and censorship orders against American social media companies. President Lula responded that Brazil was a sovereign nation with independent institutions and would not accept any form of tutelage.
$1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 530. Botswana 13 pula 21. Kenya 128 shilling 594, and Zambia 24 kwacha 30. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar there will cost you 5.47. Russia 78 rubles 23. India 85 rupees 72. China 7 yuan 17, and in South Africa the dollar will cost you 17 rand 79 cents. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Gold at $3,322. Platinum $1,344. While Brent crude oil is at $70.14 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabisolo Hoko.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
SABC Sport brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting 13 July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2, tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache and the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus anytime, anywhere. No subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun, this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
Annie Kalonji sur Channel Africa.
Nous allons à présent dérouler notre tapis rouge pour accueillir notre personnalité du jour, l'artiste chanteur Sheki Frey, qui est en ligne de Guinée avec nous.
Je suis un artiste guinéen, un créateur, un styliste, et je fais un peu ce qui plaît à mes fans. Voilà, c'est un peu ça. On a beaucoup de genres de trucs à faire, mais bon, pour le moment, on est basé un peu sur le rap.
D'accord. À quelle période de votre vie avez-vous commencé à vous intéresser à la musique, Sheki?
Bon, je ne crois pas qu'il y ait une période, parce que moi, je suis un mélomane depuis mon petit âge.
Annie Kalonji, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628. Get set and be ready to go. On the move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama. Tamengubene talks money. Africa in business. 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6. We put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some Lucifer knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tebogo Lekweleni and Matseko Musito. Tamengubene talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m.
Mariamo Kumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some Lucifer knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana. 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tebogo Lekweleni and Matseko Musito. Tamengo Bene talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique, with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Mariamo Kumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some Lucifer knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. And Benjamin Moshatama. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but...
And that is the music of Davido, Hang Out with Omale. That one is titled With You, and before that, starting off the double play, is Salignolo with Tam Tam.
Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa. Hashtag on the move and connect with us.
Hi guys, this is just to say happy birthday to Benjamin. I hope 40 brings you nothing but the best. You know, bro, I've got your back from day one. This is Luyanda Maume. Great show, by the way, guys. Enjoy.
This is Luyanda. You know, this guy I used to work in Cape Town.
Yeah.
He doesn't work with us anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But how I found out about Channel, I used to listen to Channel Africa back in the day, right?
Yes.
And I wanted to work here. And this is my first person that I spoke to. I'm like, I want to work at Channel Africa.
Wow.
And he's the guy who actually got me in here.
Hey,
it's
look
like,
at
okay.
that.
And I sent him my recorder. I sent him some of my work that I've done. And then he sent it to the other guys and they were listening to me. Like, oh no, let's give him a run, this
Yeah.
guy. So yeah, thank you so much, Luyanda.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So more birthday wishes coming in.
Oh, such a lovely guy. Love you, Luyanda.
Keep them coming, man. It's not over until it's over. And Ben's birthday is still going to be here the rest of the day.
I'm birthdayed out now.
No, you're not. You'll never be birthdayed out. That is not even possible. But also, I hope you have a great day. I mean, we're about to wrap up the show either way.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope you liked your surprise here.
Thank you for the cake.
cake.
I'm going to keep these banners.
Yes, you
I'm
should.
definitely going to archive them.
Lovely.
I'm going to keep them for life.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, well, I love that so much. Keep those birthday messages coming before we leave the studio. And even if you keep them coming in the other shows, I'm pretty sure they will pass on the message and your birthday wishes back to Benjamin wherever he goes after this. Do you have plans?
I'm just going to go out for dinner.
Okay.
With
that's
my
nice.
loved one.
Yes. Okay, I love that. That is so cute. Well, it's definitely a 40th birthday, right? Something easy, something
some
chilled.
cocktails, a very mature dinner.
Hey, look at that. Plus,
I'm going to get jazzed up a little bit. So, yeah.
Okay, that sounds incredible. Well, happy birthday to Benji. But we've also had great conversations on the show today. So if you still want to let us know what you think of the conversations of the day, you can continue to do that on our social media platforms. And if you've missed any of them, don't forget that on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, you can find our podcast. Click on the programs tab, navigate your way through the various shows here on Channel Africa, and find On The Move. That's where you can find our podcast under our show's details. We'll keep things moving. Let's take a break as we wait for Lulu Gabu to come in here and let us know what's coming up on today's Africa Update.
And we take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine, 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda, as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tebogo Lepoleni and Matseko Musito. Tamengubene talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Muteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some Lucifer knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana, 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day.
Vesti and Picaloos there. That one is titled Bossa. It takes us to 11:56 Central African Time. Lulu Kabu, our favorite, is with us in studio. How's it, Lulu?
I'm well, thanks, and how are you?
I'm good.
Great,
I'm
man.
good.
So I hear you're like, listen.
I'm on
people
level
can
4.
see the
Level
balloons,
4.
You know, happy birthday.
Yeah.
It's an amazing place to be. I promise you.
Ne?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's yeah. You know exactly. As long as you know who you are, you'll have fun.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Looking forward to it.
So coming up on Africa Update today, there's so much happening. When we look at cases like the issue of General Mkwanazi, the police commissioner of KZN, it's still continuing with regards to the revelations and allegations he's made. The murder accused and controversial businessman Vusmuzi Kat Matlala, who was named by the commissioner, is once again under the spotlight after he was found with a cell phone in prison.
Wow.
You know, and but funny enough, we spoke to Miles Budu the other day.
Who's that?
Miles Budu is a former prisoner who then started a what do you call it?
An NGO?
An NGO,
Sure.
basically focusing on correctional services
Okay.
and prisoners.
And
And
what-
he
yeah.
he said something very interesting. He said they've been telling correctional services in South Africa to change the way they handle things in terms of how prisoners are handled. They must have cell phones and have regulation with regards to cell phone usage and cell phones in prisons. And I asked him, but how will that work? You know, and he says this is something that's been done internationally, which I found quite interesting.
That's
but this guy was found with a cell phone, so we're going to be focusing on that. And then marches in South Africa, Action SA on the ground. We do have reporters on the ground covering that story in response to what's happening with regards to the SAPs and how it's being dealt with, and a lot of analysts calling on President Ramaphosa to do something or to say something to the people of the country, especially with the impact this will have on not only the country but on the global
impression of
South Africa. So a lot coming up in Africa Update.
Hey, you are in good hands with Lulu Kabu. She doesn't look at things on the surface. She definitely asks the questions that really seek a context of the different issues. So stay with us right here on Channel Africa. We're going to leave you with this one. Twoki is here with Diso Tiako. Music all the way from Madagascar. Until next time, God bless.
At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa